So two coasters that are often compared are Premier's Skyrocket II model and the S&S Launched El Loco. Now off the top of your head, you may not know what a Launched El Loco is, and this model is only sold one. It is Gale Force at Playland's Castaway Cove in New Jersey. These models are very similar in terms of the style of ride, size, and price point. So today I'll be putting them up against each other head to head and giving my opinions on each of these rides and deciding which one is better. Premier's Skyrocket II started production in 2012, with the first one being Superman Ultimate Flight at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. The original rendition featured a 2-car train with lap bars, however the newer versions often feature 3-car trains and comfort collars. These trains aren't that great, in fact, they're some of the worst I've ever been on. The seats are weird, they aren't very comfortable at all, and the lap bars have these awkward shin guards that really push against your legs. Also not to mention, the trains are super cramped and are nearly impossible to get into if you aren't a small child. However, once you are sitting, they don't feel as cramped, but they're still very tight. The lap bar is very bulky in my opinion, similar to the U-brick found on Superman the Ride at Six Flags New England. I recently had the pleasure of visiting Lake Compounce, which has Phobia Fear Coaster, which is a highly praised version of the ride since it only has lap bars. I got 2 rides on it, and in my opinion, it's a solid ride. It's a great fit for the park. After climbing into these horrid trains, depending on your size, you may or may not get room. As a bigger guy, my legs were pushing out on the shin guards, and in result, gave me about an inch of room between my lap bar and me. This both hurt and helped my experiences on this ride. The first ride I got, I was towards the front, and I enjoyed it for the most part. The launches don't really have any power behind them, but they're just rather there to speed you up. You won't be slamming into your seat or anything. The first launch is forwards, and you pop up into the climb a little bit, then head back down into the second launch where you really get pushed into your seat going up into that non-inverting loop. Once you fall forwards, you head into the final launch and twist up the climb. At the top, you get a small pop of ejector airtime, then head into the ride's only inversion, a 150-foot tall Heartline roll. This was absolutely the highlight of the ride for me. It feels so slow, and you get some insane hang time. And being 150 feet up is truly horrifying, especially with just lap bars. After the roll, you hit some trim brakes going into the drop, which are absolutely needed. This drop is insane. In the front, when you crest over, you get some great floater, and for the twist you get insane laterals, and that goes for the back too. However, in the back, the airtime is so strong it legitimately hurts. Not sure if I just wasn't ready for how intense it was, but my legs felt like they were being amputated while my body was being violently thrown around like a rag doll. I'm sure if I was more prepared for this drop, I wouldn't have had much of an issue with it. But I see why people like this drop, because it's just crazy. After the twist down, you get slammed into your seat with some great positives, and then you glide over the top of the non-inverting loop, then hit the launch track and slow down. Overall, this ride offers quite a bit in its 863 feet of track, features strong airtime, positives, and laterals, and even an inversion. On the other side of things is Gale Force. This ride had some serious controversy around it. It was the first of its kind, an S&S contracted an Italian company to make the track instead of using their usual sources, like their in-house manufacturing and Intermountain lift out of Utah. The train also wasn't articulate enough to get around the insanely tight twists and turns of this layout and made some serious squeaking noises. The ride was delayed a year and opened in 2017 instead of the intended 2016 opening date. The ride ended up being way too intense and was even rough for a brand new coaster. S&S installed trim brakes throughout the layout and added new trains that were more articulate, and the ride opened to mixed reviews in 2017. People said the ride was amazing, including myself, yet others said that the ride was rough and mediocre. This ride had a vibration along the tracks, but didn't have any jarring transitions or painful moments. Castaway Cove took this into account and asked S&S if they could retrack it for the 2018 season, and they did it free of charge. This time they went for the Intermountain lift to make the track, and now it is butter smooth. For 2019, they added a double cycle to the ride, so you get through the amazing layout twice. This ride seems to focus a lot more on airtime and laterals rather than positive G-force like the Skyrocket II. However, it still pulls strong positives. After the swing launch, you fly up into a 125-foot tower and dive into a 100-degree drop, which is still one of my favorites to this day. The ride is shorter than the Skyrocket II's in terms of height, but the ride doesn't have a height as a main feature and focuses more on speed and twists. After diving down about a 100-foot drop, you slam into your seat after getting some insane airtime, then fly up into the world's only kickflip, which is one of the highlights of the ride. You pull amazing airtime and laterals on this element, and I wish this wasn't the only one ever made so far. After these two elements, you pop into two more of these diving twists that look like inversions, but actually aren't. These pull a mix of laterals and airtime and have some good positives at the bottom of them. After going through the final dive, you fly into the station to go around the layout a second time. Now for Skyrocket II's, I mentioned how horrible the trains are, and it's the complete opposite for Gale Force. The seats and restraints are the exact same you find on free spins. Wide, comfy, and not restrictive. The restraints are a lap bar mixed with a vest, and the vest doesn't tighten up on the ride, so you feel all the forces, once again, just like the free spins. While Gale Force doesn't win in the height stats, it wins in speed, length, and duration. Skyrocket II's hits 62 miles an hour, while Gale Force hits a top speed of 64 miles an hour. Gale Force is also just over 400 feet long and is 22 seconds longer with a double cycle. If you really wanted to get into detail, with a single cycle, the Launched El Locos can hit a higher theoretical capacity since the single cycle is shorter than the single cycle on Skyrocket II's. However, Premier offers 3 car trains and a double station similar to the ones found on Mr. Freeze clones. Now it's time for some true coaster nerd stuff here. S&S claims that the ride can hit 480 to 1080 people per hour depending on how many trains and loading stations are added, and boasts a mere 40 to 50 seconds time in the station for theoretical loading and unloading, which is very good. Premier Rides lists all their different Skyrocket II models on their website, including the 2-car model, which can achieve 500 people per hour, the 3-car model, which can reach 750 per hour, and the double station model with 2 cars can hit 685 people per hour. I'm sure if they possibly make a model with the 3 cars and the double loading station, it could possibly hit 1,000 people per hour. Now, in my opinion, which ride is better? Well, it comes down to a few things. Personally, I prefer the ride experience Gale Force gives, as it's more intense, unique, and has comfier trains. Gale Force is also more compact, coming in at 220 by 40 feet, compared to the Skyrocket's 220 by 62 feet. However, most parks would probably go with a Skyrocket II over a Launched El Loco due to it being a more well-known product and is seen to be more reliable. Gale Force is known for being unreliable due to its first 2 years in 2016 and 2017 being an absolute mess. However, Gale Force has since been reliable and ran very well since 2018. Now that S&S has fixed the kinks in its product, I can imagine that it will be a well-selling product and should be. To put into perspective how much better Gale Force is in my opinion, I have Gale Force ranked number 20 out of 167 coasters, and Phobia Fear coaster ranked at 44 out of 167. So, what do you think about these two models, and which one do you think is better? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, thanks for watching guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you subscribe for new videos coming soon. Don't forget to leave a like so we can beat the YouTube algorithm, and I'll see you all in the next video.